Okay, so we are now live. So yeah, I just looked on your Facebook page and I didn't see anything since yesterday. So I was saying, oh no,
I'm alive.
you're live.
I'm
Good,
alive. Yeah.
good. And Venita's here. She's not feeling that great.
Hi, dear.
Um,
Hi, Bill. How are you?
Oh, I'm blessed. How you doing?
Happy Friday. The day is Friday. Yeah, happy Friday.
Another one. That's a
and
blessing.
and Bill here with me is my friend Rita Michelle.
Hi, Rita, Michelle.
Hi, happy
And
holiday.
we've
Same
been
to you.
we've been hanging out all day. We went to the movies to see Spotlight,
Okay.
which was really good, about the Boston Globe who broke the story in 2002 about the Catholic priest and the sex scandal.
Yeah.
Um, and then we went over and had dinner at a community dinner place that was really nice.
Master Sabu.
Chief Master Sabu is a martial artist who donates uh, Thanksgiving and Christmas for the past 30 years
Oh,
to
wow.
the
Good.
community.
Great.
So yeah, and now we're here. So it is a Merry Christmas for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
But I thought you were going to do some notes and questions and stuff, but I guess that
Uh,
didn't happen.
no, it didn't happen. I was thinking about it all week, though.
Oh,
My intent was good. I
your
just
intent was good.
my
Okay.
intent was there. But you know what? I'm going to attribute it to not my culture, but my laziness, which has
Oh,
nothing to do with my culture. You know, um, and my procrastination. I kept saying, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it up until last night. And here we go. So, but I figure all of us being competent, conscious adults, we can get through it without notes. I know you love to
well,
teach and
well,
organization.
yeah, and that would probably be a lot more feasible if anyone had actually read the book besides you and I.
Hmm.
Um, so I guess you know you probably really need to play more of a role of kind of framing
Okay.
the situation. But let's have everybody introduce themselves and give their location. I'll start. My name's Michelle Odom, and I'm located in Brooklyn, New York. And I'm here with
Rita Michelle in Brooklyn, New York.
and Venita.
Walker, and I'm joining you from Cromwell, Connecticut.
Okay, and I'm Bill Peters, not in Brooklyn, New York, but in South Jersey.
Okay. So you want to set us up, Bill?
Yeah. Well, for those that may not be, we talked about it briefly. But for our other Rita Michelle, this is the book Blackmailed,
Yeah, I see it.
and the book was is a compilation of voices, centered around the conditions of the black male here in America, specifically in America. And the book encompasses poetry, dialogue, narratives, famous speeches, to include some very notable names and some historic speeches, such as, Angela Davis, Stokely Carmichael, the Birmingham to Jail letter, by any means, the ballot to the bullet, the ballot or the bullet, and various other speeches like from Stokely Carmichael, Huey Newton, and also H. Rap Brown. And because we thought it was necessary to leave behind, if you would, some commentary from our perspective as opposed to waiting for the institutionalized education system to provide us with the things that we should know. So the poetry itself becomes very personal. The dialogue becomes very, very personal. History is history as far as the historic speeches. And we were also blessed to have the Imam Jamil Abdullah Alameen formerly known as H. Brown, to contribute to the book as well. And we felt that these voices, historically black, were, necessary, not only in reference to what was being said, but also to hopefully cultivate new voices, in the wilderness that can touch, the generations to come within our community. So that ergo black male, and whatever. Last week, well, let me go back and digress to the week before that. The week before that, when Logan and I spoke, about doing this, Revolutionary Love, it was kind of sketchy, but both of us, were committed because we're conscious, and we want to thank everybody, for being here, Venita and Rita, because it kind of, in its own small way exemplifies, the dialogue that we need to have more often within our community, and which includes our family structure and also with ourselves. This particular book, does not necessarily speak to love in a direct sense, but in an indirect sense, it's pointing out, many of the issues that confront our community. So when we committed to doing this series on Fridays, it was questionable as to whether or not we wanted to do it on Christmas and New Year's. But personally, I felt it pertinent because, I'm here alone in the house by myself, living in if you would, a cocoon of dysfunction, with my family, not because we don't like each other, but because of certain things that has transpired. So that level of communication I was raised upon has kind of been disbanded. We don't get together anymore or whatever. And, that kind of, goes across the board for many people within our community, everybody from the single family home, the single parent home, to the love of our brother within our community, murders in Chicago of each other, so I kind of felt that, well, perhaps we could talk on, what tends to be more exemplified during this particular season, of giving and loving, and, that we're raised on, that seems to be missing. So ergo, here we are, to talk about that, and, to listen, from you guys as well, not only for us to talk, but to listen, and perhaps, at some point in time, come up with some type of resolution or reconciliation as to what we can contribute to, getting that ship, back in the shipping lane, or that train back on its track, so to speak. So, and for anybody that don't know me, I can talk, so.
Well, I would just add that Bill Peters is the publisher of Inner Child Press that published this book, Black Male. So do you want us to talk at all about the June Barefield piece?
Okay, if as you said, frame it. If I could set it up, frame it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling Logan last week that, she had brought up, that this, his voice sounds negative, and I know June from a, personally, I've broken bread and communed with him. We shared the stage together, and I would think that not so much negative, but there's a residing anger. To give you a little basic background about June, he pretty much, grew up in the streets of St. Louis, Missouri, and and also Eastern St. Louis. And when I say pretty much growing up in the streets, meaning he came from primarily a single parent home, that was headed by his mother. So a lot of the support systems that, families, have were found in the street, on the street corners and the gangs or whatever. And from that, he paid the price of, incarceration, and I don't know if he wants me to tell all this, but I just got to be honest about it because, he's been for many, many, many years been on the road of rehab. And a lot of the rehab, so to speak, comes through, sharing the voice through his poetry, through his commentary or whatever. So if you have the opportunity to read him, it may appear to be negative commentary, but that is not so much it as opposed to it being an anger, and that anger is exacerbated upon ourselves, as well as, society at large, the institution that keeps us where we're at, and so on and so on and so on. And I just kind of read, if you would, um, on page 17, he writes a commentary titled "A Generational Epidemic Now Firmly Set in Stone." At first glance, I would say that's very negative. Upon consideration, I would say, well, the heck with that. I'm not going to allow myself to be cast permanently in any scenario that is demeaning to me, my people, my family, or the generations to come of who we are. So it kind of raises, if you would, my angst, you know, to change the cast, that is expected of us, because most certainly when we look at society, you know, they pretty much have us pegged, in reference to what they expect of us as black folks, you know, and what they don't, in reference to how we eat, our social behavior, our interactions with each other, how we lift each other or don't lift each other up. I mean, pretty much on the board, they have it down to a science. But that doesn't mean we have to acquiesce and accept that science as being our reality, in the years to come, or in the time to come, or even now, you know.
Okay, so um, one thing that I think questions are really a key way of drawing people into the discussion.
Hmm.
And I did have a question that came up for me on page 17. Um, and I think it's the one that I posted online, but I'll read the piece that inspired the question,
Okay.
which was this. It's the second paragraph on page 17.
Hmm.
In political arenas, them say, without that basic innate instinct, which is anger, there can realistically be no hope for the masses of the people, only more of an American dream, while certainly achievable to some. For the majority of the black males in and around the inner city is all but inconceivable. Um, and so the first question that occurred to me was that if the black man cannot have the American dream, what shall he have?
Well, let me put it
And,
this way,
and where is his anger leading us? And why should we care about his anger? Why should we care about him?
well, let me say this, and I'll tell you a little parable of a story I wrote a long time ago. It was about um, this guy and his son. He was a businessman, and his son went to Mexico. And while in Mexico, they went to a flea circus. And if we're familiar with fleas, they jump several thousand, you know, their height and what have you. So his son got a good idea to start a business, and take it back home, So he asked his father, could he buy some fleas? So he did, and cut to the chase of the story. So anyway, he bought the fleas, put them in a jar, get them back home. Okay, and at all ends, he was rebuked, as from friends and family, and even within his home, in reference to wanting to demonstrate how high these fleas could jump, and he wanted to take them out of the jar just so he could show them. So, after being rebuked, he finally got frustrated and took the top off the jar anyway, dumped them on the table. And these fleas no longer could jump as high as they could. They could only jump the height of the jar. Okay. All that to say that, we have been indoctrinated, and excuse me if I offend anybody, because that's not my intent. Everything from the Jesus syndrome, throughout, what is expected of us, to the baby mama dramas, to the welfare checks, to the drugs, to everything. We have been indoctrinated so much to believe that this is who we are, you know. And so that type of conditioning, is accepted on many, many levels, whereas, we have to kind of come to a consciousness where we can break out of that conditioning. I don't know what happened to the fleas in the years to come. However, I know that I am not a flea, and I know that I have consciousness, And I know that, just like Obama said, yes, we can, but we have to, believe that with all that we are, and encourage our peers, our brothers, our sisters, our family members to believe that as well. So, we were taught to dream the same American dream as anybody else that watched the Palmolive and Colgate commercials, and the Pepsodent smiles. We were taught to dream the same dreams because we watched the same television. Um, so, in essence, what I'm saying is that yes, we can, but the deck is stacked against us. They have put us in this particular jar where, as far as community, the services within our community, where we live, the grade of food that is shipped to our community in our grocery stores. I mean, all the way down the line, medical services, banking services, job opportunities, and of course, the largest one fighting us today is the justice system, which includes our oppression, repression, suppression, and also incarceration. So we have a lot of challenges, but that doesn't mean we can't. It just means that we're going to have to work a little harder.
Well, yeah, and certainly I know all that. I think all of us know all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And but I was really trying to get at the anger piece specifically. What we do with it. And one of the things he does say in this chapter is that he has a lot of justifiable anger that's directed toward middle class black folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the points that he's making is that what we're missing most of all is a strong sense of identity. And so I think a case can be made that, and I think that's what he's trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a case can be made that anger can fuel the kind of positive changes that we need. But I think an equal case can be made that we can get stuck at a destructive. To me, anger is like fire.
Mm-hmm.
You can put it to positive use. It can keep you warm. It can cook your food. It can do a lot of good things. It can also burn down your house and destroy, every bit of your existence. So I think that it is very difficult for people to. I think that people don't respond well in the face of anger.
Yeah.
Well,
and like it's funny that you said fire, because it made me think about the Native Americans, in the Midwestern and the Plains states, how part of their strategy was to burn the plains. Okay. And in the burning of the plains, the regrowth was so prolific that it attracted the game back in huge numbers, that made for the bounty. And to be honest with you, Logan, I honestly feel there's a lot of things in our institution as black folks that need to be burnt down, um, a lot of the belief systems, a lot of the things that we embrace as our truths, need to be decimated, everything from the whole concept of the Santa Claus thing, where it entices us to go into debt, and it's just not us, but it entices us to go into debt, a debt that we cannot afford, for things that we will not remember, on up into our spiritual belief systems, and how we embrace ourselves spiritually, to the self-hate that we embody so much, our divisiveness amongst each other. So, I can see where, burning some of those particular type of, institutions of belief down can be beneficial because maybe perhaps this,
Well, I can too. But
yeah,
as I'm saying, if you're not managing the fire carefully and properly, it easily gets out of control,
hmm
and is just completely destructive. So is that what we should hear? Is that what the black man wants us to hear? That he just wants to destroy everything in his path? Because I'm also leading up to um, whatever it is that you might want to say about dysfunctional families, and using this Christmas occasion to kind of get into that. But there is a lot of dysfunction in families,
yeah,
and you know, in a real way, black men and black women have a lot of issues.
yeah,
Um, but as I said earlier, people don't respond well generally to anger. So that,
okay,
for example, if you just come at me with anger, 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 anger
hmm
all the time, and you're on a slash and burn mission, and waving the flame, and you don't know who you're hitting and who's getting hurt and who's getting cut, because you just want to destroy, destroy, kill, kill, kill everything in your path, then at some point I've got to step back
yeah, yeah,
to
and
protect myself.
yeah, and I relate and understand what you're saying. Having a controlled burn is, you know, um, something more significant or something more beneficial to us as a community. Um, and if we were to borrow a page, if you would, from the European Institution of America, um, that first attacked our homes in our community. We've never really had it that great. We remember the '60s as being a particular way, but if we go back to the same '60s that where we felt that we gained all these rights and what have you, in those same '60s, at the rise of the Black Power movement at the hand of several factions, which included the Black Panthers, their mission was one of building the family up. That was their initial mission, and standing up for their rights. Um, at that point in time, about that time was when the government instituted the welfare program. And the propaganda that went along with that, where we were, all on welfare, so to speak, like, fried chicken, watermelon, pointy shoes, and have a lot of babies. That was the dialogue that went along with that whole concept. But no one talked about the majority welfare, where it went and who was on it. They always seemed to point to us. And as that program developed, it then developed into that if you wanted to get this monthly check, there can be no man in your home. Well, that was the greatest, so in essence, that in itself was a controlled, direction in reference to burning down, if you would, our family structures, because when I came up, we were 3 and 4 generations deep in the house, grandmother, mom, myself, and perhaps children, you know, um, and that was the accepted status quo. And so again, going back to buying into the American dream, we wanted the bigger houses, and whatever. But most certainly there was a controlled, if you would, we were the lab rats, in reference to what they could do, to us and how to gain control of us, and also repress us in reference to us not having our own understanding, so to speak. I think it's very, very complex, but I really would like to hear, what everybody else has to say about it, because, I think that, gathering perspectives from other points of view is healthy. And most certainly I have, because I'm very, very opinionated about, who is my friend and who is my enemy and what challenges I have. But by the same token, there are other perspectives I think that perhaps may be helpful. So
Mhm.
someone jump in.
Well, I think that as Loga has called it, Mich'elle has called it, controlled anger. I think structured anger is necessary for the black man, for the black community, to be heard. I think having structured or controlled anger, you need a support system. It seems to me they don't hear you until you scream. Now, you can call it anger or not, but anger lights the fire to be productive in a positive manner. It should be rather, because in this we just leaving Master Sabu's dinner. We saw a film. I don't know if you guys saw, because I never did get to see it, called Hidden Colors, and it was a complete documentary from some of our greats on our history coming from slavery to post-slavery till now. And it did talk about how the black man just kept trying. I mean, any way that the black man thought that the white man would accept him, he tried. He kept trying and trying. He kept getting rejected. He kept knocking on that door. Okay, here I am. I'm dressed like you. Can I come in now? And they kept saying no, 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 no. Finally, he said, okay, then, well, will you accept me if I just sit on the corner and drink this alcohol and get high? Now can I be an American? And pretty much when I see this title here saying a generational epidemic now firmly set in stone, I truly can understand that. I don't think we should accept it.
Agreed.
I don't think we should just sit down and say, okay, this is how it is and how it should be. I think that it's the truth. And what we're going to do about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I kind of think where it ties in for me personally, because I think first and foremost for myself, I'm a humanitarian. You know, if I look at the hierarchy of things that are important, first, I'm a humanitarian. I'm a human being. Second, I'm a male. You know, third, I'm a son. You know, son then father. You know, not to say I don't place importance on being black, but my priority is being a human being, and with that comes the struggle of my blackness being accepted as a human being of equal standing. You know, I don't want to, you know, I would hate, and I talked to Logan about this, I would hate to see us, you know, overcome the struggle for us to be sitting on top and to look like they look now, you know, so to speak, you know. But I think one of the main things that we have to come to, and one of the things that was so empowering in the 60s that we have lost was, you know, we call it black power, but black love. You know, we have lost the ability to love ourselves from a personal perspective and also from a community, you know, perspective. And the fact that, you know, we are our greatest enemies, you know, and one of the things I think that we need to do is to consider, you know, how do we mobilize our own communities to become self-dependent yet interdependent, and to be our own faction instead of waiting for the handouts, waiting for the checks, waiting for the okays from a disinterested, you know, entity of humanity or society, you know, because the truth of the matter, you know, regardless how friendly someone may be, if they're different from me, they, you know, they put themselves first. And we need to stop putting NASA first and start putting ourselves first.
And that was one of the episodes also in this film. I wish you could see it, called Hidden Colors. It also showed the black man going to the white man saying, okay, if we just build our own community, if we just build our own community and not need anything from you, will we be American then? Will you accept us as American then? And they still said no, because then you'll be a threat to us and we're going to have to destroy your community.
Right. Ergo Africa.
Venita, any thoughts over there?
I remember growing up in the city of Philadelphia, being a very small child. And let me start out by saying I do believe in the power of thought. I believe in subliminal messages. And I believe that they're very powerful. And they stay right here. But when I look back And I hear folks say, well, you know, there are a lot of black folks on welfare, a lot of black folks that were doing this and that. I don't remember that being a young girl. I remember where I lived on 20th and Moore Street in Philadelphia, parents going out to work,
Mm-hmm.
moms and dads. I remember there being two family homes, black moms and dads. Um, so I believe that there's been a lot of subliminal messages fed to us to even make us believe
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
this is us. Because I don't remember that. I remember, you know, having during that time, the parents, whenever they got together, it was a family get together. It might have been adults' time, but they always brought their children wherever they went, you know, at families'
Mm-hmm.
homes, and you know. And I don't remember what these folks, white folks, have been telling black folks how they are, because I don't remember that. So you know, maybe it's personal experience, but 20th and Morris is South Philadelphia, and that is the city.
Right.
You know, it wasn't like an almost city or almost suburbs. That was the city. I remember home pride. I remember living in a clean, wonderful neighborhood. I remember block parties. I remember folks going from home to home. If someone fell in hard times, you didn't have to worry about that. I remember my mother going out with a dish and taking collection because someone lost their job. It wasn't a hand out, it was hand up.
Right. Right.
I believe that black folks, we've been victimized by all these messages that they sent us that said that this is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And that's dangerous.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
at some point,
Yeah.
and I would think that would probably be during the late 60s and early 70s when drugs started to take hold of the neighborhoods. Then a lot of other issues came into play. But this is my personal experience growing up in the city, and I don't remember what those folks are saying. I remember my mom going to work. You know what I'm saying? I remember families, you know.
How 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 do you feel about this anger thing?
I think a lot of times our anger is misplaced, and I do agree with Bill, and you and I discussed it before. I think that black folks can and have done more damage to themselves than any white man can ever do. Anger is good when it is structured, because it can turn into something positive, but it has to be organized anger. I No one hears you when everyone's just screaming. You know, sometimes you have to lift your voice, but that still has to be in a organized way. Um, and I get a little confused on it myself. I really do. It's hard for me to explain. But I get confused by that.
Yeah.
What are we trying to say? Because I
Mm.
can't even hear what we're trying to say.
Right.
I can't, and this is just personally.
Yeah. And you know that's funny
I
you say
can't
that
hear
because
it.
yeah, it's funny you say that, Renita, because you know like they have us so screwed up, so convoluted, and we know that it is basically a lie, yet and still, you know, we have no direction. Some people say it's because we have no leaders, you know, or whatever the case may be. But you know, going back, regressing a bit, you know, the irony of it all, you know, because I came up in the 50s and 60s, you know, and I lived in Philadelphia, you know, and we lived on a block. You know, there might have been 100 homes, you know, on the block, and I can only think of one, maybe two, single people, not single parent families, but single people that had children, but they lived with in a multifamily type of environment where they live with their sister or their aunt or their
Mhm.
grandmother or their mother or whatever. Whereas now, to find, you know, a house on you go on the same block to find a house to have both parents, that's the minority, the rarity these days. You know, and it's funny how far we've come, or how far we went backwards. You know,
Regressed,
you
really.
regress. Yeah, and I won't say regress because we were never about that. Except during the days of forced, incongruity, in slavery. But we were never a people that was not about community. That's not our makeup. We've never been that way. But most
Well,
certainly we have embraced that, in modern days, modern times.
well, the reason why I say regressed is because personally, that's the way I feel.
Okay.
That we have regressed. Looking at my younger days,
Mm-hmm.
and once again, if there was a single mother, there's been single mothers since the beginning of time. She did
Yeah.
have
Right.
support of the grandmother, the aunt, folks with that. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there was always single mothers, but it still wasn't as convoluted. It was like this is the way it was. This is how we're going to handle this. All of us are together. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, Bill. I do believe we've regressed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm just getting technical with the words. Regress, go backwards.
Well, yeah, to the point where at least now, all right, let's not get off the subject. However, let's look at the times we live in. And everyone knows that these are trying times. If you ever been tried, it's now. Then we had trying times, but like you said, we had community. You could talk
Right.
to your neighbor, you could talk to your cousin, your aunt, everyone, So we were able to handle the trying times. It didn't mean that we didn't have them. It just means that collectively we can try to understand what's going on and find a way to help one another to get through it.
Right.
And now, who do I call?
You on
Yeah.
your own.
You, Rita?
You on your own. It's like, we were just saying that even with having lost loved ones. It used to be community where everybody surrounded the bereaved or the grieved and,
Yes.
brought food in or whatever. Now, there's no compassion. There's no
No.
love. And that never was the Black community before, but it is now.
You heard what I said. When somebody fell on hard times and folks were working, you didn't turn to the welfare, not where I was in the city. Your neighbors made sure that you had that rent paid. There was food on your table. You understand what I'm saying?
You took 2 jobs.
So it wasn't gossip. It wasn't, oh, good for you or good for me, bad for you. It was no. Mrs. Jones' husband lost her job, whatever job it was, down at the shipyard. This is what we got to do. It wasn't even talked about. People just did it. They made sure that things were taken care of until Mr. Jones got back on his feet.
Right.
No one ever thought about welfare, not in my neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? It's like, together.
So I'm going to say something, which I know I'm going to regret, but since Bill did not do the questions,
Okay.
that's what happens. You leave us open to go in any direction. But I don't want to lose the focus on what this book is about and what it is that Black men are trying to express to the world. But a Black man, a friend of mine, recently posted something on my Facebook page. I don't know if he was like having a moment or what was going on because it was really, really out of character for him. Nevertheless, I'm going to tell you what he said, even though he says that I'm misinterpreting what he said. But what he said is there in black and white, so you can interpret it however you choose. But he says the way that I interpreted it was wrong. So what he said was that Black women had allowed white feminist women to define feminism for us, and that because we had allowed that, it was at the root of the problems between Black men and Black women today. So I had a reaction. But we don't have to get into that specifically, but I'm thinking about what you've said thus far, Bill, about dysfunctional families, and how the result of that is, that we can find ourselves alone on days like this,
Right.
with very different circumstances from what any of us grew up with,
Hmm.
where there was always family around, whether you were married or not, there
Right.
was the extended family. And so to have so many people, literally alone
Hmm.
during the holidays is certainly a definite
Yeah.
sign of some of the change that's going on in our community. So
Right.
maybe we could focus a little bit on what has gone wrong between black men and women, or do you think anything has gone wrong
Well,
between black men and women?
I want to go back to. I realize I'm a minority here. I'm the only male here,
That's all right.
but I
We
want to go
won't kill
back to.
you.
I want to go back to what the gentleman said. You know,
Mhm.
and point out the fact that to a lot of educated black males, what he said for us is very, very true. Okay. Um, it was sort of like the left behind. I don't want to be left behind just because I'm a black woman. Okay. So, I think that the feminist movement did have an impact on our community for us to reach for things that were not necessarily accessible. However, it did also inspire some of us, or a few of us, or a minority of us, to go beyond our quote unquote, corrals or means. But I don't think that what he said is the only factor that attacked the harmony of our family unit. Because there's other factors, such as repression of the black male, the welfare system,
Mhm.
voting, even, equitable banking services, equitable services in our community. I mean, you go into black communities when they did have payphone booths, you wouldn't find payphone booths. Um, and just to kind of tell you a little story, back in 1970, 78, 79, I worked for the insurance company. And, even the type of insurance that was sold us versus the insurance that was sold to people on the other side of the tracks was drastically different. We paid 10, 20 times more per dollar for what we got in return of the services. Same thing with supermarkets. And to this day, that particular type of warfare is still, and I call it warfare, is still going on in reference to whatever. So it's not only what has transpired and what has been done, but what is continuing to be done. And in the meantime, though we may know this, subconsciously, and every once in a while it'll consciously pop up to the forefront of our thinking process, we allow ourselves to go back to sleep so quickly because we want that new pair of gator shoes, or I want that new hairdo, that new dress, or whatever, without realizing, that every, we're not conscious of every act that we take, that and the impact it may have on our community. That's not to say that they are, but it's their game. So most certainly the odds are in their favor. Um, I mean, we stop and we talk about something as small as our economy, for example. The black community represents a $1 trillion, annual economy. That means as a consumer, okay, $1.3 trillion. Yet and still, when they talk about circulation within our own communities, they know that the Asian dollar circulates for 28 days in their community before it leaves. The Jewish dollar 17 times. Even the Spanish dollar goes around 8, 9 times, but ours stays within our community 6 hours. 6 hours.
I know, and that's horrible. But I'm going to interrupt you because I want to keep us focused.
Okay.
What has gone wrong between the black man and the black woman? Venita, what do you think?
I don't know. I, I mean, oh God.
Do you think anything's gone wrong? Because you, of
Of
course, have
course.
a happy marriage to a wonderful black man. So, do you think anything has gone wrong?
I do believe a lot has gone wrong, but I don't believe that black women are solely responsible
No, not at all.
for what has gone wrong, as some certain person alluded to.
Mm-hmm.
In any dance, there's usually a marriage or relationship. There's two people that are doing that dance. So I'm trying to be all cool about this bill.
Oh no, speak, please speak.
Just spit it out.
I find that so insulting. For someone to even allude that we are responsible for the woes of our community or black.
But I think Bill is right that a lot of black men feel that way. I have 3 brothers who feel
Well,
that way.
I don't think you heard me finitely. In a finite sense, I'm not saying it's all on the black woman, but I'm saying that is a portion of our belief system. Not
Right.
that it's even true in individual circumstances.
I heard you.
But most certainly, just like I give you a classic example, I mean,
Well,
being
wait. Let me see if Venita was finished.
okay.
Were you done, Venita?
I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Bill. Let me
Okay,
pick one.
go ahead, Bill.
I'm going to say, from a black male perspective, and I don't know, but imagine, and this dates back to slavery. Imagine that, you're a slave, you have a family, and master comes down and says, I'm taking your son, and I'm selling him, or I'm taking your wife and I'm selling him. The powerlessness of the black male to intervene or to, effectuate, the what they want. In modern day society, you have black males that cannot find competent, employment to support their families by the means of which, our TV tells us we should be able to do, like, 9010, or whatever, those particular type of things. It can be very humiliating as a male when you find yourself in a position where you cannot take care of the people that you care for.
Granted. But
Now,
no, let me interrupt you right there to say, because I do think we have to take this little bit by little bit.
mm-hmm,
So right there, I
mm-hmm,
agree. Um, that the economy is racist and oppressive,
mm-hmm,
particularly toward black men, but also toward black women, and increasingly toward others.
mm-hmm,
And in a lot of cases, that means that the black man and or woman is not able to provide for their family according to the American dream vision of how that should
mm-hmm,
work, the nuclear
mm-hmm.
family and that whole deal. So, what is it that the black man expects that the black woman would do in that situation when Uncle Sam comes rolling up to her back offering some diapers and milk? Does the black man expect that the black woman would at that point say, nah, let my baby starve? You know what, we're going to just sleep on the street. I mean, because if that's what you're mad about, what was the expectation?
Ergo, there again, the convolution of the situation. I don't have the answers. You don't have the answers. None of us really have the answers. I look at the spirit of my mother, and we didn't have a whole bunch growing up, but we had food. We had shelter. I remember my father, as long as I can remember, always worked 2, if not 3 jobs. Okay, I think one of the things that we have lost, between the generations is the fortitude to not only say yes I can, but go out and make it happen. And I also I'm not going to put the whole blame on the welfare system, because we got government cheese, coming up, and peanut butter, but and it was some of the best cheese in the great box.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is the fact that I think by and large, some of us got to the point where that's what we expected, that we expected a handout, and we lost, that fortitude. Say, okay, well, I can get over it. So I just won't show up the first to the fifth, and I'll show up on the sixth, and I'll see you then, honey. Or the man's coming over, whatever. The oddity of it all is that the rules that which we were made to abide by were not enforced on the other, in the other sectors of American society. It was used as a whipping post for us, so to speak. So I can't really point the blame and says it's this or that, the feminist movement or the welfare system. You can't really say that, but I think it's a conglomeration of all these things.
I agree, and it's complex. Let's hear from Rita. Rita, do you think anything has gone wrong between the black man and women?
Oh, most definitely.
And what's the problem?
Well, I hope you guys don't laugh when I say this, coming from Brooklyn, but it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And I think Bill kind of hit on it, like it didn't start there, but, that whole public assistance situation, especially in the urban area, where it was better off for the mother to get public assistance than it was for her to keep her husband, because he couldn't find a job that could provide for the household. So in order for her to get help, he had to be gone.
Exactly.
And in most cases, he would go with a woman who had, I don't know how many children for someone else, because he wasn't obligated to take care of those children. The whole breakdown between, and then when it comes to the black woman, she has always been matriarchal. She forced to be. It wasn't always a choice. She had no choice. She had to take hold of the reins and make survival happen. So, I'm not gonna say the black man became weak, but to a certain extent, yes. And it's not his fault. Not totally. We all have a choice in this life, man, woman, no matter what the circumstances might be. If you have to shine shoes or collect cans or whatever the case might be to survive, you do it. And you know that you're doing it because you're not lazy.
Right.
But at the same time, I think it's a jealousy that comes in between the black man and the black woman, because the black woman she's gonna make it. She's gonna fight for survival, and she always has, and probably always will. Whether that man breaks her heart and leaves her half empty or not, she is going to fight for survival.
Yeah.
So when it comes to our black men, can you handle this tough woman who has had to fight?
Right.
Can you be strong enough to look at her and be proud and cherish her, or will you look at her and say, oh, she's too strong for me, let me run, let me go to a white woman who's, I can control, and she jump when I say jump, So yeah, we definitely have an issue, and I think the issue is kind of like jealousy in a way.
Right.
Honestly, me, myself even, and I've seen other black women do everything in your power to build a black man up that you love. You do everything. You lose yourself to build him up, and it is still not enough.
Right.
So when will he look within and find his God? Because bottom line is, who will make you love yourself to the point where you're not jealous of the one who loves you?
Right. I gotta say, I was saying earlier, I came up with, huh?
But I know Venita's itching.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go on, Bill.
I was going to say, and I agree with you so much in the fact that, I came up in a family, with both parents. My father worked all the time, but it was clear whose vision the family was molded around. It was my mother. You know, in that, I think the thing that when she defined what was important in her life, it was family first. It was family first. And the family was father, mother, children. And as you were saying earlier, it was sort of like what Malcolm said, it was a by any means necessary type thing. Meaning, even if the kids had to go out to work to help support, pay the bills, and that's what you had to do, and that was expected of you, but I defer.
Mm-hmm. All right. Let me see. Did anything else strike you about this chapter, Bill?
Yeah, I would like to read a little excerpt here
Okay.
because it ties right back into what we're saying, and I like to sit back and listen. This is chapter 3, and it starts off, it says, "What is disheartening is the fact that we know the truth, but we feed the lie, collectively gorging ourselves off of the sentimentality offered up, not only within the confines of our own communities, but nationwide, where time after time the sentimental outpouring is equipped properly with everything but sacrifice, and our national consciousness remains a foreigner to any sense of unity."
What page are you on?
Page 17, third paragraph.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And that's back to what we were just talking about. We have spent so much time buying into the hype. See, because we didn't create this game. We're just the pawns in it.
Right.
And we have enough consciousness to know not to be the pawn, but we haven't done anything with that too, except small portions of that. Some of us have been lucky, to become whether it's actors or media personalities, or even to get an education to break outside of the community. But that's a very, very small percentage. But that we have not created a plan, to channel that cycle back into our communities to give other people the same opportunity to get out or escape or to lift our communities up, because we're too busy accomplishing that dream. I asked a simple question, and it's not mine to say in reference to what Oprah does with her money, but why do you need $3 billion?
Because it's hers.
Yeah, and that's exactly the point that I'm making. Not that I have the right to judge her, okay, but most certainly I see that, as we accumulate these resources, that we're not making an investment back into the foundation that spawned us to put us in a position to create these resources.
Well, we bought into the whole Western ideology of individualism and rugged individualism and um, I got mine. But there was a line. Well, you remember last week, Venita was saying that I always talk about the need for a 500-year plan.
Mm-hmm.
There was a line. I don't know if you heard it today, Rita, in the movie, where one of the bishops, I think, was saying, the church, the Catholic Church, thinks in terms of centuries. you know. And black folks from the day we got to this country have been caught up in a day-to-day struggle for daily survival. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we really are primarily focused on how we're going to get food, for tomorrow, and we may be a little bit more comfortable than that. We may know that we have food and roof for the next year or so. you know, but generally we are trapped at this sort of um, this need to focus on the immediate. Um, but I don't know if anybody out there is really taking the time to look at the big picture and the long-term picture, and certainly I don't think that's how Oprah sees herself or sees her role. um, in the community. But it seems to me that somebody needs to be taking that focus. And we got into the discussion last week about how you transmit values and ideas to your children, to the next generation. And I remember you, Bill, were saying, I think you and Venita were both saying, you want to let your children kind of find their own way. Tell me if I'm misquoting you. But you don't, even me, you don't want to tell your children what to think. But at the same time, it seems to me, if we're not transmitting certain key values and information that we need to survive into the future, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it, because as hard as I agree with Rita that black women, will fight till the dying breath for survival. But I think we're much closer to that dying breath than we like to actually look at. And
when we say revolution, I'm sorry?
No, I was going to say that I think that black women are tired. I can speak for myself. I can't speak for the rest of the black women out there. My husband did work those 2 or 3 jobs with the education. Okay? Worked 2, 3 jobs, 88 hours a week. I remember him working 5 years straight in a row. 88 hours. That's 42 jobs plus 8. Off of 2 hours sleep a night. It's not, I've always known who I was. And I tried to instill certain values in my children. But let me tell you something. Just trying to raise 2 boys to survive and get an education, all the other stuff that comes along with it, I did not even have an ounce of strength left. I did not have an ounce of strength left. I'm going to be honest with you, to worry about anybody. My contribution to the world was to make sure that my 2 sons survived. And that took every ounce of energy I had. I just recently have gotten to the point where now the one of them is 38 and the other one is 28. And, I've done the whole thing, stay-at-home mom for 28 years, where I actually have time to think about everyone else. And that's not because I'm selfish, but because if you are actually present with your children, it takes every ounce of strength that you have.
Yeah, but see, I don't think you're understanding what I'm saying, Venita, because I'm not talking about setting aside time to do something extra for people that are not in your home or family. A part of what I'm talking about when I talk about a long-term plan or a 500-year plan is, what are we doing with our children? I mean, you can, Bill is right. We all watch the same TV. We're all subjected to the same brainwashing and propaganda that is American society. Nevertheless, parents continue to have some ability to be an influence in their children's lives. We're not the only influence our children will experience, and we can't stop our children from being influenced by all the things that are happening outside of our home. But what are we saying to them in the home? And that's what I'm talking about. What we say to them inside the home can either lead them on a path toward wanting to unify the black community, or lead them on a path toward
not caring.
Being Oprah. Toward not caring.
Can I say something here at this juncture?
Yeah.
I think that even though we have all been raised on the same Eurocentric dreams, that when we go outside the home, what happens is what's being reinforced for us is quite different than what's being reinforced for them. When we look at the institutions of Black America, we look at such organizations as NAACP, Black Panthers, SCLC, to name a few. And all of them had been under attack by, a racist society, to disenfranchise us from any particular type of power we may have garnered in organizing ourselves. The only thing we had left was the family unit, which we spent that 8-10 hours a day inside the family unit, and the balance of our day outside being influenced by Eurocentric values, and the church, and I'm not going to say the church failed or what the case may be, but the church itself was not Afrocentric. It was not an Afrocentric type of spirituality. So therefore, we again were in reinforcing values that were not, indigenously ours. So when we talk about the power and what we can pay for, carry forth, when we look at the Eurocentric structures, we have the Girls Club, the Boys Club, 4-H, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. All these things are help molding their children with a certain moral fabric, that reinforces and supports their theosophy in life.
Right.
But what do we have that we could send our young children to, that reinforces our particular, theosophy, as Black folks?
My son went through a rites of passage program, and I'm not trying to say that he is the most Afrocentric person you'll ever meet, because he's not. But he did go through a rites of passage program as a young teenager, and we did celebrate Kwanzaa for many years that he was growing up. So those are at least two things that are available to Black families in some areas, because depending on the part of the country you're in, you may not have that at all.
Right.
But the models are there for that kind of
But
training.
there again, we need the institutionalization to make sure people know of these models. Because I would say that by and large, that we as a community are not even aware that these particular type of resources exist. But we know about the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and 4-H,
Right.
But we have nothing that is indigenously ours, that we can, if you would, feed our youth through to help reinforce and cultivate the values that we need to have within our community.
Well, we have organizations. Well, we have many here in Brooklyn, actually. But like you said, it's a matter of people knowing what resources are available. You have the National Action Network under Al Sharpton that does have a section geared to young people. And like you were saying about the Panthers, as I was speaking to Mich'elle once, I'm saying here we are sitting here in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, a very historical section of Brooklyn, where the Panthers, started the whole breakfast thing for the children and free lunches. And, when you have to get radical to build community, to help community, then they want to, the powers that be want to infiltrate you, because then they see you as a threat.
Amen.
And you're not a threat if you're trying to self-help, but they see self-help as a danger.
Right.
We had a gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, but I know him very well, I just can't think of his name. And he knows me too. And he had started an organization where he was teaching Black and Latino men how to survive. And I was listening to Venita speak about her sons and praying, hoping and praying and doing all she could to help them survive past, because, the average age was 25 for a young Black man to, be killed.
Right.
And this gentleman from Crown Heights was teaching Black and Latino men how to react to police. What to do when they pull you over or stop you. Don't talk back. Do what they say. We're talking about survival here, because we need you to be our future.
Right.
And it goes back to that whole structured anger. And every time we tend to find a way to support and build our community, starting with the youth, and even if it's not the youth, because one time Al Sharpton was up here at the Slave, and he had every Wednesday night informing the community of what was happening in the community with the police and the mayor and many things that people would not and did not know because they don't report it. And they had to be very careful that news reporters weren't sneaking in. They started sneaking in black snitches, black news reporters, until that was infiltrated and no longer. So I'm just saying it's not for the lack of trying. It's just for the lack of being, again, I hate to say, but almost powerless.
Yeah, there you go.
So here you go back to the church, back to praying. Because of your efforts. Like even what Master Sabu is doing right now is a great thing, because he not only gets you there and feeds you, but then he puts on a black film, like I'm trying to tell you. I hope you guys get to go see it, called Hidden Colors. And it's dynamic.
Yeah.
It'll make you say, whoa.
Yeah.
Have you seen it, Phil?
I have it right here by my bedside.
Okay, so you know.
Yeah.
And Venita?
I have not seen it. Actually, I have not even heard of it until you brought it up tonight.
So maybe you get a chance.
Oh, yeah.
But there's definitely, Rita's right, and I've lived all over the country, and there's definitely uneven development going on and uneven access to
everything.
Right, resources, ideas, all of that.
Education.
Well,
yeah.
Racism.
Well, also too, geographically, we're not in the same spaces like we used to be together anymore. I'm here in Connecticut. What do you think Connecticut is? It's not a Brooklyn.
No.
Have you ever been to Brooklyn lately?
No. The reason why I say that is because actually my grandmother owned a restaurant. I lived in New York also when I was a little girl. My father's mother owned a restaurant in New York. So I'm very familiar. My older sister went to PS. I forgot the school.
I don't think she.
What I'm saying, yeah. So I'm not, I'm suburban now, but no, I'm a city person. And you don't get access to that information, like all the wonderful cultural things that are going on, also to the proximity. I don't get all that access to that, because here it's like one over here, two over there, four over there. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times not because you don't want to know. I'm not right there in the city where I get all the interaction and know. If I was there, of course, I would know what's going on.
But they don't get it here either. That's what I'm trying to say.
I know.
They don't know what's happening.
I don't get it. I don't get it. By the time I get it, they done destroyed 10,000 people, and I'm like, oh, really? That happened what year? So, one thing I did want to mention too is our economy has also played a large role in what even black folks that want to extend themselves, what they can do. And a lot of us haven't, for the last 10 years, or a little longer, because we only had a couple of decades, or a few decades to make a run for it. That's the first thing. So you break it down, we probably had about 3 decades to try to make a run for it. And that's not enough time to run from here to the corner. You know what I'm saying? And that has a lot to do with it too. During the economy, and I listen to my grandmother. I like older people. I love my elders. They tell you stories. I like stories. I love stories. And she would tell me stories about the Depression and how those black men that did want to work and black women that were working, which were most, no matter what they were doing, during the Depression, the recession, those jobs are taken away from them. And we really do see history repeating itself. During these hard times, even that educated or skilled black person is more apt to lose their job first.
Yeah.
So, and I don't care what anyone says. I mean, I have 2 sons. I wish, that's another thing. I wish you could actually talk to them. I like to talk to them and hear what they think, because they're 11 years apart, in 2 different generations. That 77 child and that 87 child. So we can actually ask them what happened to them. You know what I'm saying? And we have to do that because I'm interested to know. I'm just speculating, and they know because they're out there. What's happening to them? We haven't had time to do anything, Bill.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And even some
Well,
damage.
we haven't had time, but somehow, you know, we've had time to create this division
Well, that doesn't take much. You don't need a lot of time to do that.
between black people, and you know, I don't know what we're gonna do about it, but
Yeah.
Well,
Can I read something from the book, an excerpt from the book? Do we have time?
yeah. What page are you on?
Okay, page 18, the second paragraph. And this reinforces, you know, a lot of the dialogue, and specifically, you know, what Venita just got through saying. And this, again, is from June Barefield. And he says, I submit to you very humbly that any economic reality that the pockets of the people have benefited from will never succeed in masking the human reality. Plainly put, what divides more often than not is what class, what race one belongs to. And while we have those who have successfully negotiated this labyrinth of inner city living, leaving behind those who remain to applaud their efforts in joining the economic infrastructure in American society, inoculated and under the proper spell of the propaganda of the day. The question that remains unanswered is, what of the superstructure that infused them inside this nightmarish dream that has made their thinking the same as those who oppress the majority in communities across the nation? You know, so, you know, that goes back to the dialogue, you know, about our successful, you know, people that have, you know, negotiated, you know, and, you know, risen to the top, that institutionally there's no particular feedback. When we look at other societies, cultures, whether they be Jewish or, you know, or let me say Hebrew, or, you know, various other organizations, you know, there's a process by which they reach back, you know, whether it's, you know, to provide jobs, you know, or to help sponsor education, you know, the tradition of, I went to the same college my granddaddy went to, you know, where it's, you know, and all of these are factors that kind of affect, if you would, the weakening of the foundation of what we call the African American society, you know, or the Negro society, as we were allowed to call ourselves back in the early days. But you know, I won't say it gets easier, but most certainly, hopefully, we become more conscious to the things that we've all have, you know, mentioned here, because I think that all of it plays a part that disenfranchises us from the reality that, you know, we do have the resources, we do have the ability, and we just need to wake the heck up and start, you know, making those particular commitments to the betterment of our community, whether it be inside our home or our collective community, you know, because there was points raised in reference to how we are raised and how we took care of each other on the block. Renita talked about how she was committed to her family. We need those particular type of commitments that have kind of gone astray, you know, and it's not to say you can't point the finger at the black man or the black woman or the white man for that matter, because there's too many fingers to be pointing at, but most certainly we need to kind of, you know, think about these things and figure out a plan individually and collectively as to how we are going to raise our own self up our own bootstraps, as opposed to waiting for someone to give us a hand up, you know, who's not interested in our welfare.
Right.
and I believe we should start with the babies. Start with the babies.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
I think I spoke about the last session that we had. God bless everyone else, but I only have but so much time on this earth, and I'm on the other side of the mountain. So my choice is to start with the babies. Show them something different. You know, start instilling different things in them now. Because I mean, you can't help everybody, and you can't do everything. But I think the babies is a good place to start.
Yeah. The
a
best
good place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Best place.
Absolutely. So, all right. Um,
And can I say?
gosh.
And you know, I think another thing, and I hate to sound like this, but everybody here is Black American, so I'm gonna just put it out there, and it's just how I feel. I feel like once the '60s were over, and especially after the death of Martin Luther King, well, first the death of Malcolm X and then Martin Luther, I think that once we had achieved certain rights on paper, some powers that be had a meeting and said, okay, these N-words think they got all these rights. They think they're going to be equal with us. They think they're going to move in and take over. We'll show them. We're going to infiltrate. Next thing you know, they done sent in I don't know how many different foreigners from every which way, which is another stumbling block for the Black American. Because, and I'm not just talking about Caribbean, West Indians, Africans, and Dominicans and people of color. I'm also talking about these Russians and Polish and you know all the people hungry to eat, and they wait right and good and well right after Black people done lost their lives for civil rights and human rights, and now everybody coming in tearing at the fabric of the American dream, and the Black Americans are still struggling, still fighting for what they were fighting for. And so here we have another obstacle that people don't realize is happening to the Black American people and basically the Black American man. Because yet again, we're talking about the head, what should be the head of your household, what should be the strength of the woman, and yet once again he's pushed back to the corner because we have to make room for all these different foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
Soon as we have fought and shed our blood for what we should have had as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a whole nother obstacle that people just don't seem to realize that. I know there's always some of us, based on how we were brought up, that will succeed.
Mm.
But we can, you know, like Martin Luther King said, he has so many profound sayings, but I'll never forget this one. He said, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So I don't care how far I go in this life, I cannot forget that my people are suffering.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, and I go back to what this writer says, whoever this writer is.
June Barefield.
What was that first? What he said it was sketched in stone. I think here it is. Generational epidemic, now firmly set in stone. You know, it's like there is nothing we can do about them infiltrating with all of these different people who are hungry in whatever country they come from. And then they always celebrate whatever country they come from. And yet this is our country, our land, and we had to move over because they were hungry too.
Right.
And I mean, that is something that the Black person is going to have to overcome yet again, because there's nothing you can do about it. You certainly can't send them back to wherever they came from
True.
and say,
Well, I don't
okay,
know. Donald Trump is trying to do that, baby. So you might be wrong.
well, I don't know about Donald Trump, because he might start, after he done finished sending all of them, they might turn to the Black man and say, well, how y'all like Africa? And we don't know a thing about Africa. I mean, what we do know, we know we have evolved to a whole different race of people. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think we became complacent. I believe because we became complacent. I can't blame everything on the white man.
Not everything.
Not everything.
But
No.
it's a
We
conspiracy.
just became complacent.
Yeah.
But now it's time, no matter whatever else has happened, we have to start somewhere and get present again.
You got to wake up, like Bill said.
Yeah, we laid back. The 80s happened to us, and we got a little house, a little car, and a little this and a little that, and I said, okay, we made it. And we just laid back for a while, because we was tired too, and we did a lot of stuff, and we said, okay, we're going to savor this moment, and then 10 years passed, and 20 years passed, and here we are today. Meanwhile, back at the ranch,
Yeah.
I'll become president again, and I believe that we have to think about starting with the babies.
And I
Because
think
some folks
people,
die. I mean, let's just face it. Some
Yeah.
folks are just too old. Let them die. We got to start with the babies. We already know what happened. We have to devise a plan. Maybe that 500-year plan Michelle's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think people are brainwashed. They're beaten down. They're tired. They're broken, and they're frightened.
And mentally ill from
And
all the down.
and I'm gonna tell you, all of that comes from
No, I'm serious. From all the beaten down and tired and broken and the this and the that. And we are just, we're just tired and mentally ill from all that abuse.
Yeah. If I may, Logan, I don't know if we have the time, but being a writer, I wanted to share, this writing. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, and you know what? I'm so glad. I like the way this sentence is going because it really was on my mind after we met last week to ask you if you would read some poetry or something at the end of our session. So is that what you were about to do?
Okay, this is not a poem, but this is, and I'm gonna give you the title of it, and you get where everybody's familiar with the Willie Lynch letter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, this one here was something I created a couple of weeks ago, and it's called Willie Lynch the Third, 2015. So this is the grandson of Willie Lynch speaking.
Okay, well, just move over a little bit so we can see your whole face.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Is that better? Okay, this is Willie Lynch the Third, 2015. The powers to, and excuse, there's some graphic language in it to some degree. Okay, the powers to be were trying to figure out just what to do with all the niggas, African Americans, population, and how to keep them in their place. You see, the mentality was if we can no longer control them by enslaving their minds and their spirits as we have done in the past, we may have to step up our slow genocide program. We already do clearly understand their diets and what they love to eat, so it's very easy to poison them. We already have our foot on their necks economically, though we do allow a few of them to prosper, such as athletes, movie stars, and rappers. This does serve a greater purpose, for it keeps them occupied in dreaming about unattainable things. Let us face the truth. We have been very successful in our propaganda campaigns in making them aspire to have the white lifestyle, thereby foregoing and discarding their own culture. Look at all their women, and excuse me, forgive me for this, but look at all their women who want to have long flowing hair like Farrah Fawcett.
Mm-hmm.
So we have created wealth even for our Asian allies with the weaves, wigs, and horsehair being sold.
Mm-hmm.
We are very successful with our welfare campaign in removing the man from the black family, and our drug program to this day continues to prosper in its degradation and destruction of their communities, not to mention how much money we are making due to incarcerating them and laying the cost off on the taxpayers of America.
Mm-hmm.
This has served us in many areas. It has kept the common people at odds, though in truth they are in the same boat. Television, movies, and radio has been a godsend for us to maintain our status quo. I know we have passed laws, as we have had to do, to allow them to read and be educated, but no one said it had to be equal. Besides, who said life was fair? We just provided lower standards of achievement for them, which again maintains their ignorance of the program. It's a laugh that you can have an African American graduate from high school with an 8th grade reading and math aptitude. But it worked, and it is still working to this day. So if they go into college, we would just call them redshirted and make them feel special and provide the minimal remedialship so that they think they are equal. In the meantime, we can continue to exploit them and let them continue to produce wealth for our benefit. I do know we have campaigned many years to grow and maintain their self-hate, but now we must step up our programs and get them to willingly cooperate in their own disfranchisement. We can begin to execute them in the streets, raise them to an anger, which then creates the rhetoric that the large majority of white America really does not give a F about, and it allows us to the sport of executing brothers and sisters, much like we did when it was legal to lynch them. We can justify all of this through various laws enacted for your protection as a privileged American. We have the stand your ground laws, which incidentally does not apply to them. And you can always say you felt your safety was being threatened. It is not necessary for them to be armed, for we control the police, prosecutors, judge, and juries, and jails as well. Now, let us discuss the black male, who, being from a lineage of warriors, becomes the single largest threat to our biased way of life. As I said earlier, we control the police, prosecutors, judge, juries, and prisons. We can further enslave them through the systems of job availability, housing, merchandising, and banking. Let them pay a higher cost and interest for everything. We can get away with this because they have no business community or banking investments of their own. So we are still the masters of their fate. For the youth, we have the pant below the ass laws. Do realize that all the laws we have are to be deployed at your discretion. Laws are the single biggest tool we have to refute their ability to rise up. None of us wish for them to ever be equal. In closing, I implore each of you who understand the challenges ahead of us, European Americans, to be mindful of being humanely empathic to their conditions. We could and would not enjoy this white privilege without having someone on the bottom. What better segment of society than black people? So keep them niggas where they belong. I thank you for your time, Willie Lynch III.
Excellent, excelente.
Oh, Bill was a award-winning poet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he summed it up.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Very nice, Bill.
Yeah, and I just kind of think that, that's the first thing is we need to be conscious that there is a game being played,
Yeah.
and whether we want to play it or not, so we can't turn our backs through ignorance and say, oh, that doesn't, I'm not going to let this happen to me or whatever, because that particular type of, denial and ignorance leads to other issues in our community, other issues in our family, and other issues with ourselves. That once we become conscious and live with that consciousness on a daily, moment-by-moment basis, I think then we have to do something about it.
Have
Sort
to.
of like June with the negativity. If we acknowledge the negativity that he's expressing and say, wow, is that me? Sooner or later, we got to do something about it.
That's it.
Yeah, or you'll explode.
Yeah. Or you wind up kicking somebody's butt.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope you're right about that. Next week we have Janet P. Caldwell's piece and Sharif Abdur Rashid. Are these going to be negative?
You have to say, but listen,
Angry.
if the two young ladies, Venita and Rita, if you have Logan send me your address and I'll mail you a copy of the book out.
Thank you.
So that we can all be on the same page.
Oh, I thought you had a copy of that poem you just read.
Yeah, well, email me the poem. What did you say? You're going to send the book to?
Yeah, I'll send the book.
Okay.
So y'all give Logan your address, she can give it to me, and I'll send each one of you.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah.
And that is wonderful. Wait, but what about that poem?
I'll send it to Logan, and then she can send it out to everybody.
Okay. All right. So, but I'm talking about the work for next week. Is the Janet Caldwell piece and the Sharif Rashid.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'll do some notes and questions, Bill, because, well, actually, you owe us.
Oh.
So
Hey,
really,
that's only in your mind.
Don't try to follow us. Bill, come on back. Come on back, Bill. Come on.
Okay,
No.
huh?
Come on back, Bill.
Is it possible that Janet might want to join us?
I doubt it.
Okay.
I doubt it. And she's in a different place about being online now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wouldn't want to commit or whatever. I can ask, but I seriously doubt, that maybe she will. I don't know. I'll ask her.
Okay.
I can't speak for anybody, but I'll ask.
Okay, so did I hear you say you were going to do notes and questions for next week or not?
No, you did not. It was delusion.
So,
Delusional.
so are you going to say it now?
Am I going to what?
Are you going to offer to do it now?
No, I'm not.
All right.
You know, I'm just being honest. I'm not going to offer to do it.
I appreciate the honesty.
You know, Logan, if you knew what I had on my plate day by day.
Well, we all have a lot on our plates, Bill.
Oh.
We all have a lot.
Oh yeah, well, I'm living the life of luxury over here.
Yeah, well, I have 161 babies I have to take care of on a daily basis.
Really?
You know, authors.
Uh-huh.
You know, I could go through a whole laundry list of things. You know, but you know, I have no spouse or whatever, but my whole life is literally online.
Yeah, I know.
You know?
I know. All right, it's cool.
All right, well, I have to get ready to skip town.
Yeah, don't forget to send me the poem, and
I
thank
just
you
sent it.
everybody. You
I just sent it.
It's a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, nice to meet you too.
I always remember your name. My mother's cousin, which they're very close in age, they were always like sisters. Her name is Rita. When I go to Philadelphia, I usually see Rita.
Oh, okay.
I don't know too many Ritas.
I know me either. Except
Nice
Spanish
name,
ones.
yeah.
Spanish people.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, we're probably Spanish too. Whatever, Rita, you know that.
Italians. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, Bill, have a pleasant night. I don't feel lonely anymore.
Okay, well, listen. Don't forget to send Logan your address so I can get this book out to you as soon as possible.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah, have a happy holiday. Enjoy yourself.
See you New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Yes. I'll see you on New Year's Day.
Same place.
Well, have a blessed one.
Okay, everybody. Enjoy the holiday season.
And peaceful. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.